Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, and tonight I'm joined by Dave and Charlie for our kind of review / discussion on the first season of Star Wars: The Clone Wars, a series I didn't think we'd be actually talking about on the channel, which is a great sign. So make of that what you will until we get into it. But I really want to quickly ask everybody, how are we so far tonight?
Not bad.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah, doing good.
Right. Very well played. So everybody at home, as you said, this series is done and dusted. It's on Disney Plus. You can watch it any way you want, on your phone, on your tablet, and we're going to talk all about it. So if you're going to comment along tonight, drop spoilers. We don't care what's brought up. They've had a day to watch the finale. Some people on Twitter don't even give you 20 minutes these days. They just put stupid pictures, ... thinking that hides it, and it still aggravates me. I'm going to keep bringing that up on these Disney Plus spoiler discussions because it really aggravates me. That being said, if you are new to the channel, if you think, oh, what are these guys up to? Of course, we don't just do TV, we do film stuff as well. We're going through a couple of things at the moment, but, you know, we have a Cinema Savvy Star Wars logo now, so that is a sign there could be more content in the future. We're just waiting for December for the book of Boba Fett, which we'll bring up at some point tonight. But if you are also new to the channel, have a check out some of our social medias, which is Facebook, Cinema Savvy, Twitter at Cinema_Savvy, and Letterboxd.com/Cinema Savvy. It's got a log of everything we've covered on there, but as we said, we are here tonight talking Bad Batch, and I'm going to hand over to Dave first. I want to know from each of you guys, you know, let's say when the show was announced last year up till that first episode, did you have any hype, and what were your sort of thoughts heading into it?
None at all. I was very much not dead set against a continuation of the Clone Wars that we had, because the ending, the way they brought the season 7 that we got was phenomenal. The ending of that was just perfect. To get an announcement that we're then continuing on with, it's very much a continuation of that series, but with the Bad Batch character, I was kind of nonplussed about it because they weren't characters that I identified with or had any sort of real feelings towards. So to think we get a series surrounding them, I was very much like, I'll give it a check. I'll check out my theory was to watch the 70-minute first episode and see how I enjoyed that, and then based if I would then follow the series, and I watched them all. So I think that tells you kind of what I thought of the first episode.
Yeah, same for me, really. It was they announced loads of Star Wars stuff. I remember when Bad Batch was first announced, and I was obviously excited about everything that was coming, but didn't really have much of an opinion about Bad Batch itself. I didn't really know what to expect from it, but yeah, I watched the feature-length first episode and loved it, and I was like, do you know what? Why not? It's weekly, so it's not like I've got to blast through it all in one sitting, and ended up just kind of getting hooked to begin with.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's one of them where we were doing it back on 1 to the 4, so weren't we, Dave? The weekly Clone Wars. I despised their original arc. It was one of my least favorite things. I think there's so much hype because, Phil will know about this. It was released a couple of years ago before Clone Wars came back, but it was like the pre-visual effects. It was like the renders, and obviously Lucasfilm's always Filoni as well. They've always loved the Bad Batch, and the concept of them is phenomenal. But I remember coming out of that arc so, I don't want to say disappointed, but just underwhelmed at sort of what they'd been hyped up to be from everyone that had already seen it. When they're going to get their own show, and I was kind of sat like, you taking the piss at this point in time. Like, I was so against it. And then I saw the first trailer. I was like, yeah, the animation is really good, but I don't know if I care still. And then it was suddenly a 70-minute, no, not a one episode, 20 minutes, a 70-minute special. And I think I was the same as you. It was May the 4th. There was a bit of hype that day. I was like, you know what? Let's see how it is. And if I enjoy it, I'll carry on watching it. If I don't like it, I'll binge at the end like I did with season 1 of Resistance. And I never went back to season 2. That says a lot about that show. But yeah, the first episode was just special in its own right, I think. Again, May the 4th, Order 66. Or if we're going to get into that, because the key talking point tonight is probably going to be the Rise of the Empire and Truth. But before we get into any of those sort of problems, let's go through a couple of the characters. And some of these have character arcs. Some are just there because they're in the squad, which is a polite way of saying why they're there. But if we talk about the main squad first, let's kick off with Hunter, who's the villain. Not the villain, sorry. Who's the hero? The Rambo ripoff, as I always call him at home. I don't think he had a lot. I mean, I don't know how to really approach this. Looking at it as a whole season or everything we know, he's a solid leader. But personally, I thought he could have bit the dust, and I don't think he did. I don't know if that's me being really nasty towards him.
I think you're right. He was obviously placed as the father figure for Omega. He was given that role when she's kind of joined the team as not just part of the team, like these are my brothers, but he was very obviously placed as this is the father figure that she's craved since she was created before them. So can a dad be younger? I don't know. We'll get to that. But yeah, so he was given that sort of role with her. Had a point. I can't remember where I was going with it. But yeah, so I think, but he had the most. He didn't have a massive character arc apart from being angry at Crosshair every time we kind of saw him. And he was probably the one that had the most, if they had gone the way of ending his character in this season, would have had the biggest play probably for Omega and her character. To lose him would have probably been a big arc for her and given her a different outlook into season 2 when we get there. I thought we would lose a member of the Bad Batch somewhere along the line. The cowards didn't do it, but that's fine. But yeah, so I think Hunter is one that was given a role that was all right, but I just don't think it didn't play out the way I would have hoped it would have played out. And I think we lost quite a bit of character development because of the way the middle of the season went. And I don't know if that's just me who felt that just we lost our way a little bit and it kind of almost turned into a different kind of series partway through. But yeah, so yeah, I think Hunter was given an excellent role, but it didn't fulfill the role I thought he would.
Yeah, it started out as kind of being Hunter's story, and then when Omega became a bigger role, and we kind of the rest of the Bad Batch kind of just fell behind her a little bit. He was probably my favorite of the Bad Batch characters. I think he brought the most to the table. Probably because of his relationship with Omega. The others I really couldn't care less about, to be honest. They're just there to make up the number. I know that's but they're not really characters, are they? They're just people. They're like in a boy band when you've got the lead singer, but you need the others for the backup vocals.
They're not just numbers, Charlie.
Okay. But no, I liked Hunter. I liked his character design. I liked his attitude. I liked him a lot in comparison to all the others.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I'm going to group the next two together, Tech and Echo. Again,
I'm not sure which is which.
This one feels really bad. We're not just going to talk about characters, say we dislike them, but again, going back to a year ago, there was nothing for me personally watching them that I sort of clicked with and whatnot. The best of in this series is the overarching story, which we're going to get to. And I'd say the weakest thing in this series is the characters, some of the characters. And Tech and Echo are completely, they're not just out to make up the numbers, they're the IT guys. It's kind of like a boring version of the IT crowd. Like, anyone need a gun or a gadget or something, like one of these two is just, they're kind of like the droids, I guess, of this series. Like, you don't have a 3PO and R2 this time, you just have one of them does the R2 stuff, the other one builds things. So Tech and Echo are, again, very good. They don't have a lot to do, and they're not at the center of it. And, again, to come out of a series where you've not cared about them before, and you come out thinking, I don't think anything changed about them. And especially when you know that obviously Echo was one of the original Clone Wars characters. And I just, again, I'm not just a psychopath that wants people to die, but I was very shocked that we came out with both of them alive just because they are a carbon copy of one another. It would have made sense for one of them to perish. Really horrible.
Yeah.
But
you're absolutely right. They do fulfill the exact same role in the group. I don't see why they can't see why they brought Echo into this in Clone Wars. They decided, yeah, he'll go off with a Bad Batch, and that's great. If we weren't going to get then further stories down the line to follow them, it's great that he's gone off and found this new family of misfits that he fits into much better than he does with the clones that were around him at the end of the Clone Wars. But for them to follow him in a series, you're right. They have the same role where they do pretty much the same thing. I think that's a really comparison to R2 and 3PO that they don't have. They had the Gonk droid for a little while till they powered him with a powder ship with him, and then he was seen no more, killed him. So yeah, I think that's a really good comparison that they are then that little bit of relief. I mean, I think you get a bit more comedic relief with Wrecker. I think we'll talk about it in a second, but I quite liked Wrecker's opening story arc of the chip stuff, so I guess we'll get that in a bit. But yeah, for the two characters of Echo and Tech, then yeah, they're an amalgamation of the same thing. And you're right, if anybody was going to then be just disposed of in or drowned in Camino, it would have been one of those, and you wouldn't have been like, oh well, the team's lost a lot.
Yeah. Wouldn't have lost anything really. They're basically Fred and George, aren't they, of the Bad Batch gang? Do you know what I mean? Like they're two of the same, and like you say, maybe we should have lost one of them along the way. But like with Fred and George
are great though.
No, I agree.
Like the Merry and the Pippin of.
Careful. You mean the greatest characters in Lord of the Rings? Hold on. No, they're nothing like them. Yeah, I mean, whatever. You guys have said it all. They're just there, and I wouldn't have been sad if one of them had died, but also I don't think the story would have been affected if one of them had died. So I can kind of see why they kept them both.
Yeah, exactly. And really quickly, before we get onto the newer and more interesting ones, we're going to bring up Wrecker. One of my least favorite characters ever in Star Wars. I said this. I'm trying to actually find the message I sent to you and Phil. I've just found it on searching the old chat. This was after episode 1. Enjoyed it. ... Just need Tarkin to cut off Wrecker's tongue. That was my episode 1 review. Listen, I don't mind. I don't mind like big and brooding characters, right? I think there's always a place for them, but I've never ever took to the really big but dumb character stereotype, unless it's done funny, like Free Guy, which is a great plug for dude. But Wrecker is someone I couldn't take to him last year, and the thought of him being in a leading role in this series was a really sort of depressing thought. And you're right, the first couple of episodes with him were all right. When we had this whole, is he going to turn on them? Is he going to be this like unit, this fearsome thing? And then he can't. I want to say he reverts back to himself, but he's actually pretty quiet for the second half of the series. Again, he's someone that doesn't get a lot to do. Once that story arc's done and dusted, he just sort of fills in, and it feels very like maternal to Omega, and he's not. They quieten him down. That he doesn't get as much screen time as the series goes on, and I think that's kind of a blessing. So I'm going to give him that one. But I know he has his fans, but I've never liked him ever watching it until they tried something interesting. But again, that's just more of that character stereotype across all film and TV, not just Star Wars.
I think I felt the same going in there when he was just being this loud sort of, I'm going to punch things and blow it up. And that was his only thing he wanted to do. Oh, get some bombs. It'll be great. Just with more of an accent.
Not going to try the accent.
He wasn't from the northeast of England, surprisingly.
Oh.
But no, I really, really did love the character art of when they started hitting his head every week, and you could absolutely see step by step what was coming. And the actual episode where he did turn for that little while, I thought was actually one of the standout episodes of the season. I really enjoyed that. But you're right, once they played that out, it was kind of like, right, we've done Wrecker's story, and now he's just going to play the brother role to Omega. And he was really like that big, especially when they were working for Sid. He was just, him and Omega just having a little good off, let's go and find some food and some snacks. Yeah. Like, he played that real big brother role. But yeah, up until that, I did really enjoy his actual arc where it looked like he might actually go the other way.
Yeah, I didn't hate him as much as George did. I got a message from George about halfway through the season saying, God, I wish they would just kill Wrecker off already. Just a bit harsh, really. He's not really done anything wrong. He was just a bit of like comfort relief from the rest of the show. He was like the big cuddly teddy bear, but like he's a bit like Drax from Guardians. Like, I know what you're going to say. Drax is great. Yeah, Drax is great. But I just think he brings that same level of energy to the group, and he looks after everyone. And he's just a bit of fun. I didn't hate him. I actually quite liked him.
Well, at least we've got a bit of balance. That we've got people that take to him more, which is kind of. I know I'm being harsh with him. The Drax comparison is fair to a point, I'd say. But if they did this live action, people probably wouldn't say no to Batista playing that kind of role. Not that he actually looks like Tamora Morrison. They need to do some horrible like Tamora Morrison Photoshop thing on him for the whole thing. Yeah. But that'd be something worth seeing. Now I think we've got the main ones out of the way. Let's get to the more interesting ones. I think because obviously the big thing of this show was the introduction of Omega, and I remember her getting a poster before it came out, and everyone assumed she'd have some importance that no one really knew about her, which I think worked in the favor of the character. And I think a few people guessed that she would be a clone that was unaltered or should be like the first female clone. And there's all this discussion with it. But on paper, it's the. I mean, this is going to make me sound horrible again. Normally, I can't stand those. Like, you know, when you've got it's like Terminator.
I wish he died. No.
I wish they'd all died.
I would have
Credits.
That. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. But with Omega, normally I don't take to like. I mean, I say child actors. It's animating. It's the voice actor's older, but I was shocked that I quite liked her as the series went on. I was a bit worried at the start. I was like, is she going to be the sort of formulaic child amongst the team? But I think what they did with her was interesting, especially in the later episodes towards the end when we got a bit more about her character history and her development. I think Omega's one of the standouts for the right reasons. And if you also sort of approach it as a, you know, as new people watching it, you know, you might have kids that haven't seen the Clone Wars. She's a really good jumping off point for a lot of people to sort of get into the show. It's she's the new member of the team, and that's where we place as the audience.
She was put in a role very much like Ahsoka was with Clone Wars, so she carried that. She's going to bring in a certain level of the audience, like Ahsoka did with Clone Wars, whereas a lot of the older fans are like, oh, I'm not going to, no, don't show me a girl, Star Wars, and stuff like that.
God forbid.
It's all over Twitter, you can find it. But no, they brought Omega in, and you're right, I think in the trailers we were given sort of a brief look at her, and you didn't quite know if she was a clone. The look wasn't exactly like you go, oh, of course she is. And she has a very androgynous face. So even in the early trailers, I don't think you kind of say, is it definitely like a girl clone? Is it just a really young clone? So I think they played it really well in that. And I think you're right, she's had a really, really interesting take. The way she, especially towards the end, is not just part of the team clinging on. She's actually she's giving them orders of which way they should go and what they should do, and they're actually following what Omega says. And I mean, like Crosshair says, that's what happens when you let a child make the decisions. But I think it's just her arc has been actually probably the standout thing, and she's the one I'm more interested in finding out what's going to happen in season 2 with her. She's this unaltered clone. She's the same as Boba Fett. She's obviously an exact replica, but a female version. So I'm really interested to see where she goes, and if we stay with the Bad Batch with her, or if other characters are then introduced. Also really interested in if there's anything more with the clone side of her, and obviously with what they're doing with not Namaste, that's very different. The Kaminoan that they've got in custody. Oh, I can't remember her name.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Just gonna do some Star Wars yoga now. I'm here for it. It's fine.
Yeah, Omega's good, but yeah.
Yeah, she's the best. I love her. This is the bit that I can get excited about, because she's my favorite thing about the whole show. She's amazing. Finally have a Star Wars archer, and she's a girl. I love her so much. She brings everything for me to this whole show. Like, if it wasn't for Omega, I would not be interested in watching it, I don't think. Yeah, I think she's great. She's so feisty and so decisive and just great.
No, that's it. We've got a comment from Carl we're going to bring up. I'll be thinking the Bad Batch were cloned from her DNA. That's an interesting theory. It's been a while since I've had theories on the channel, isn't it?
I like that.
It's felt like a long time.
Really good, yeah.
Because I love the fact that she kind of said that she is older than both of them, which is a really interesting sort of side piece that, you know, because we were kind of chatting before and I've that. Is she like 8 or is she meant to be 12? Because she could pass for either. But
somewhere
obviously we know that one. Yeah, and I'm really intrigued by it. But I'm assuming she's Boba Fett's age. Were they from the same batch? I don't really know how it works, but because obviously she's Omega, so
yeah,
she's obviously
he's Alpha. He's the first one, then she's Omega, which is the second. I think it's a really awesome point that I'd never thought of. But she said she was there when they were created, so you might think that, of course, that. And they called her, like in the early season, didn't they call her like a defect, the same as? And at first, I took that just to be she's a girl, and that's why she's the defect. Yeah. No offense, Charlie.
So sexist,
it's just, I know I am. Oh God, the northeasterner in me coming out. No, but she. No, I didn't mean that. It's just it seems like at that point they were telling that side of it, but now when they say the defect, it seems like she may have be almost like the parent to the Bad Batch, which is kind of even the role that she was playing, like I said, towards the end of the series, kind of coming into fruition as well. So yeah, I think it's a really, really excellent point by Carla.
Yeah, love that theory.
Yeah, and I think as well, we kind of I mentioned Boba because I've sort of said this from the beginning that I wondered if he would come up. We'll speak about those sort of bits later, but the fact that, because we know in Attack of the Clones, he says all Django wanted was one unaltered clone for himself. Now we can approach as, hold on, they might have done a whole load of these, and that's where Omega's come from. I don't want to ask where, if they did it in alphabetical order, poor Beta, Charlie, Delta, Echo. I'm not going to do the whole alphabet.
There's going to be a Charlie.
I mean it more as that they're probably experiments that didn't come out right, which is why we've ended up with Omega. So I'm going to say that B. Well, this is what I mean. B to N has probably had,
and I didn't come out right.
B to N's probably had a terrible time in the Chameleon Scientist world. They got to, I was like, thank God, we were almost at Z and worried about doing alpha for the next load, like a spreadsheet. But no, Boba Fett, I love this. I'm very curious. I'm not going to sit here and jump on a speculation thing and say that Book of Boba Fett's going to have Omega in it. I don't think so. But what I'm curious for is, I know we'll get to season 2 later, but I'd imagine Boba Fett's going to come up at some point in this show in the future. I mean, we don't know how many seasons it's going to have, but me personally, for her to be in that sort of same line as him, an unaltered clone, it would make sense for him to crop up at some point. And I did originally think he might have come in the finale. Wouldn't have made any sense because he's a kid still. At the same time, I was sort of curious because we know he's sort of doing his own thing at this point in time.
Sorry, I was literally just checking out the name of the Camino in Nala Se, whose name wasn't that far away.
You were close.
I was close to getting it, yeah. Sorry, George, what was your point? Sorry, I literally checked out, sorry.
No, we're talking Boba Fett. Do you want him in?
Oh, sorry, yes. I don't think she'll show up in Book of Boba Fett. I think it's a very separate thing from that, but I do think we might get, if we don't get Boba Fett showing up at all, we at least get some hint of his character around with the Bad Batch next season. Not like, it could be just, even if it's just a mention that there has been a clone before her, that she has an actual brother. So I think it certainly will be in the air of it, but I don't know if we'll actually see him. I think the empire building has really got to go where they've literally symbolically finished the Clone Wars. They were like, look, clones are no more. This is done. We've blown up Camino just to show you what we mean. So I think it's got to be the build of the Empire next. I think that, for me, has to be the main focus of the show, just for my own interests to be kind of kept.
Yeah, and I think there's only so much you can cash in on Boba Fett. Like, originally, he wasn't even much of a character, and then he got this huge fan following, and they were like, okay, well, people want to see him, so let's... Yeah, well, exactly. This is my point. Like, he's just merchandise. So I mean, I don't think we'll see him in season 2, and I really hope they don't put Omega in his show. I just don't think it would work. But
would it be like Tamara Morrison in drag?
No, I do want it.
Have you seen those memes of him at he did this video, didn't he, when he came back from filming the show? And he's gone into like bathtub, like it's like a promotional video for his like local spa. But what everyone's done, because of the environment he's in, you can green screen it. So they've been placing him into like loads of random Star Wars scenes, saying come to the Polynesian spa, and it's like they did it in Lego Star Wars. They've done everything. It's so funny. But yeah, that'd be interesting. I reckon there's a good chance of him in season 2. I'm just gonna leave it, just because I'd text Dave saying I really want the spoiler alert if you never saw the render, the Boba Fett versus Cad Bane standoff, which 99.9% of people assumed would be the death of Cad Bane. If they're going to bring Boba in, I'm happy just to have it for that, so we get to see that done properly, because it gave an origin to a dent in a helmet, which satisfied a lot of people. Which says a lot about exactly. Someone would know still.
It just seems like they did with that whole scene. I know the one you're talking about, that they rendered that, but it feels like they did that with the Hunter and Cad Bane scene. Like they took that almost frame for frame, the exact same thing, but obviously put Hunter in it and chickened out of killing him again. Like we all want.
That was it. We'll get to that.
Wish they would all die.
Speaking of sadistic murderers, let's go to the villains, because by a country mile, not to help this case of me wanting everyone dead, the best character of this show, one of the best Star Wars villains already, is Crosshair. And I had no idea I could come out of an animated series thinking, I'm going to bravely put this down as well. So when we did a Force Awakens review, 6 years ago now, or around that time, I said on that video, watch this space. Kylo Ren could be one of the best ever villains in Star Wars. He's already killed Han Solo. We don't know who's next. And that to me, that came true. I was absolutely nailed on. And that was like a week after. That was like the day after the film came out in 2015. And I was mocked for that, and I'm not mocked anymore. And that was before the Adam Driver hype too. So I'm going to also say that. And I'm saying the same about Crosshair. If they keep him on this trajectory, I mean, personally, he was this on Clone Wars. Here's the edgy one that, obviously not going to smoke cigarettes with Disney, but here's the edgy one in the background saying the things while he's got like a cocktail stick in his mouth as well. And I was like, oh, he's so edgy. And when it was like, he's going to be the one that turns, like, okay, this is interesting. Yeah, there you go. You've prepared for it.
And bizarrely, yeah.
Was it just there? That's quite terrifying.
Has glue on the end of it, so it's not too nice.
But I was shocked at how well he was done. And he had the whole character arc up till last week when he's fighting sort of back to back with Hunter, up until the last minute of this week. We don't know what he's going to do, but I think Crosshair to me is the standout of the show. And I really, really hope that we get him back in properly.
He has to be, if they're going to go forward with the way they've kind of left it, the big bad of the next season for them. I think there's, obviously we were talking about the Rise of the Empire, and that I do want to see that, but obviously I don't want Vader to come into this. I don't want it to be another Jedi hunt. There's no reason for him to be involved in this story or any way, obviously, apart from it for fan service, like going, Vader's here. Like, we don't need that. That's not this part of the story for him. He's off doing his own thing, purging Jedi. So yeah, I think he has to be the big bad in this. And I love the Titanus character. I love the turn in that the chip wasn't what made him turn. He just is a soldier and will follow the orders he's given. I'd love to find out more about when the chip was removed, because he does say he had it removed a long time ago. Why he removed it, how he found out about it is very much still up in the air. And I'd like to know if it was before the season started or if it's been when he got blasted in the head and was on fire and stuff, if it was mid-season. But the way he said it, he got his chip out a long time ago, makes me feel it was even before this whole show started. He's just a soldier who will follow whatever order he's actually given. So but I think his character was excellent, absolute standout. I thought his interactions with the Empire were superb. I liked it when he joined back with them in the finale, like 2 episodes, but he did it just to save his own skin. It was nothing about being back with the team or being with his brothers again. That is long gone from him, and he's now just a soldier of fortune and A-team, stuff like that. So he's now sort of on his own path, and I really like that as well, that he's just didn't just finish the season and go, right, I'll come with you guys and we'll go for adventures again, because that would have been even more of a like, oh, that's the ending.
That was a good comment from Carl there as well about him still having the chip, and they've just been lying to him all along about it. That's really interesting. Yeah, he's a really well thought out character. He's not, he doesn't take up the screen time. He's not loud and leery and look at me, I'm really evil. He's just kind of like there as a presence. And I think he's really well done. Again, great character design. That's one thing I do really love about all of the characters in this show, is how they're so individually designed, and their design really reflects their personality, and it really reflects their sort of intention. And I think particularly with Crosshair, I think he looks great. And terrifying. Like, if I was a kid watching this, I'd be full on scared of him. Like, I think he's brilliant. I like the idea that he's still got the chip in his head. That's cool. I like that.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes it interesting, because he kind of, I wouldn't say he went away for too long, but we had that gap when he didn't come in for a while, and you could have wondered, oh, did they do anything, or is that his time as a Villanova? He's going to be like a Darth Vader when he got burnt, or is he Dengar, which was a really random theory. And I just love the intrigue that I think the chip's in his head still. I think they've probably done something to think, because they had him in that. I always call it an MRI scan. At the start when they're like change it all up, I wonder if they like did something with him in there
where they were making him eviler.
Yeah, well, it's a very
evil dial up.
It would make sense with the Empire, which is a really good thing. Also, I want to mention, Charlie, mentioned what the character person is. I really want to talk about D. Bradley Baker, who's obviously the voice actor except for Omega, obviously. So I found out recently, when he records his lines, he doesn't record them individually for every character. He apparently will act out the scene and then he will switch his accent to whichever clone it's meant to be. So when I just need to see a video now behind the scenes of him talking of as all 5 of them in the space of like 2 minutes, because that's like some James McAvoy split stuff going on there.
Yeah.
That's probably incredible, and I don't think many voice actors get the credit they deserve. You get the really obvious ones that you know the ones that like pop up on all the video games. It's really bad. I've forgotten one of their names already, but it's like Troy Baker. He's like the main one, and you always get the same 2 or 3 that gets all the praise. But D. Bradley Baker, an absolute unit, and to essentially be the lead character, every lead character in the series is quite remarkable at the same time. So full credit to him. And I don't think, there's something, and this one's really dumb because obviously they're clones, but I like the fact it is one actor rather than different voice actors for different characters. I think it just adds a bit of authenticity to it.
He's done amazing with the roles that he has, and you're right, to give each character a different spin with that same person doing it is a really, really mean feat. And you're right, they could have given it to 5 different actors with very slightly different voices, and it probably would have played okay. But you're right, I think it makes more that it is him doing exactly the same thing. He's inside of all those characters. So yeah, D. Bradley Baker is awesome.
Yeah, I want to see. Like you say, I want to see a video of him doing it. There's got to be one somewhere. Surely they're gonna. Maybe they'll do a making of the Bad Batch like they've done for all the Marvel series, and we'll see it in that.
I could that'd be pretty great actually. And I was going to talk about the Admiral Rampart title, but actually let's just jump to the best bit, shall we? So I've kind of written it down as the key discussion point. This is like the centric theme / story of the show, that this is the rise of the Empire. This isn't the Clone Wars anymore. This is essentially, obviously not how they came to power. We've got Revenge of the Sith for that. You can go watch that instead. But this is very much the immediate aftermath of what happened next. And as a Star Wars fan, and I've said this for so long, I prefer the prequel era to the originals and the sequels. I'm not saying the quality of the films, but the actual, this is this prequel era, original era, and the sequels dashed to now whatever they're planning. And I've not seen any of the old, the High Republic. That's what they call it, don't they? So obviously I can't say anything about that. But this era is so fascinating. We've never had what came next. They've always had, a few Jedi escaped, the clones got phased out, and then I guess you could say we've got the PS4 game 10 years in. We're going to get Kenobi 10 years in, but not getting what came right after. And I think this was the most exciting thing for me, was when they announced that first episode that here's a 70-minute special. They did a poster for it with Palpatine as a hologram, and we knew we're getting Order 66. I think that is a selling point for the series, and what we got to see over the 16 episodes, to me, is made for one of the most interesting things as a Star Wars fan, is finding out what points the Empire were coming in and changing things.
I thought it was an excellent, starting with Order 66 again, because obviously we've seen it in episode 3. We saw it in sort of the start of it in the Clone Wars finale. We saw the actual Order 66 command. To then see it from the point of, well, obviously it was Kanan, which just for a Kanan cameo, they wanted to get that in as well, and just so that it makes some comic book people really angry because it changed the canon. See Twitter for that. So yeah, it was. So that, it was really nice to see that from another perspective, to see the clones turn as well, and to then bring obviously the Bad Batch into that. But you're right, the building of the new Empire, I love how they brought the Macquarie Stormtrooper back to give us another variation on the Stormtrooper. That's still not the original trilogy Stormtrooper, but the armor's obviously been changing, and it's nice to not just have that jump immediately to that, to use, and just the first mention of the TKs, and it's been really wonderful to see the closure of the Clone Wars and the building of the Empire. I like that it wasn't fixed on Tarkin, that he has another man doing another job, like a Krennic type that he could have sent off with a Krennic mobile and doing other stuff with that as well. But I just thought it was really well done. I'm looking forward to that, as I said earlier, more in the second season, to see what the Emperor, or what is the bigger picture for the Empire going forward, of how they're now going to start pushing out to all the worlds and taking over, being this big presence.
Yeah, and I think this is something that when they first announced Bad Batch, everyone was a bit like, but do we need that that part of the timeline to be filled in, and then all of a sudden when it started and everything started, we found out a bit more about who was going to be involved and how much of the rise of the empire we were going to see. Everyone was like, oh yeah, actually maybe we might not need it, but we kind of want it, and it just ended up working really well, and it kind of like filled in those gaps and gave everyone like something else to break down within that sort of part of the timeline. So it just ended up working really well. And they'll always fan feed a little bit though, won't they? Like you say, with Kanan and Hera coming into it and stuff, it's always just there's always going to be little snippets of things like that, just for people to post on Twitter and be like, oh my god, Hera was in an episode. Like that's what in fact I think I actually tweeted that. So it just shows that it works, even if it doesn't always necessarily make sense. It gets people excited, and I think that's the main thing when they do these kind of spin-off series, is that they got to keep that hype sort of building.
Yeah, I want to mention as well, we sort of, I know we spoke about Order 66, the ending of the clones is a massive thing. So obviously, as a kid growing up, you see episode 2 and 3, you just assume that all the stormtroopers in 4, 5, and 6 were clones. Obviously, we know they're not. We know that all the commanders, are English for a start, let alone not looking at Tamara Morrison. But I think obviously what Rebels did, this is going back to it right at the beginning of the Disney era, and fair play to the Filoni for this, they established from the get-go, not just like the incompetency of the stormtroopers and the Empire, but how the Empire works with like conscriptions and taking over the worlds, hiring them, all that kind of stuff. And kind of, not that I never gave Rebels its credit, but sort of when you look at Rebels, very rarely people talk about season 1. And if you do, it's very much, the first half of it were very childish, and the second half starts to bring you into what is going to go on for the next couple of years, which is incredible. And when I did a rewatch when Clone Wars finished last year, I was kind of taken aback at, not Series 1, but the whole Empire stuff, and always wanted to find out more. Kylo Ren makes a passing comment in episode 7, maybe we'll get rid of your troopers and bring in some clones. It's very much like a jokey reference to Attack of the Clones. And it was really interesting, when Tarkin comes in, and it's so boring because so many people complain about the politics in Star Wars, right? Biggest criticism of the prequels, we don't need politics in Star Wars. Well, actually, the whole of Star Wars has always been modeled on politics, and that comes from George Lucas, not Twitter. And it's really fascinating hearing what he says about it at the time. I think he always compared the original trilogy to the Vietnam War, doesn't he? I think that's the big thing he always says about the Empire is Nixon, all that kind of stuff. And I loved not just having the clones end, but we needed to know why. And it's so political, it's ridiculous. But just the scene of Tarkin talking to the Kaminoans, saying, well, your stuff is twice as expensive as hiring people. And they're like, we're getting discussions about the salaries of creating clones. I was like, why am I enjoying this so much? And why is this something that I really need? At the same time, I just want more of it. Like, I took a 16-episode series of just Tarkin going around talking about the office and what his plans
doing his accounts.
Yeah, I'm told.
The Empire's tax office scene is going to be a lovely one.
You're going to see the admin assistant running in with a clipboard, like, we need the receipts.
It's who's the comedian that did the famous Lego Star Wars canteen?
Yes, Eddie Izzard, isn't it?
That's it. I'd pay to see that. Dave Filoni could probably animate it.
It's so
this
funny.
Tray is wet. And this tray is wet.
It's a Penny Arrabbiata.
What a great! Nobody knows what we're talking about. Please go check out Eddie as I've seen on YouTube.
It's so funny.
It's so good. I've loved it all. I've loved seeing that side of it. I love them getting the clones out of Camino and just saying, "Yeah, we're taking you to another place to train."
Yeah.
I just like how they're just kind of shipping. Obviously, we saw at the very end there are still clones. I mean, I loved when they were blown up Camino, and there's actually clones who are still running the Star Destroyer, and like the clone who tells him that Camino's completely gone to ground. He actually was like, and Camino is destroyed. He looked, actually, being a clone helmet, he still sounded like distraught that his home had been blown up.
Yeah.
Although he was still following his orders, which I thought was a really nice touch, that it wasn't TK troopers on that. It's still clones operating those blasts and how ingrained they are into what they're doing. And obviously then we saw a few of the troopers who obviously, I can't remember the game, Rebel Commando, the Commando troops, I'll go with, who were at the very end scene, who are obviously still in this new place. Can I? Well, here might as well talk. The ending that we got, that last scene, we went to an unknown planet of unknown origin. For me, if we were going to try and do anything with this series and for future Star Wars that is about, would you have based that on Exegol?
Right, it's tricky.
Tricky.
Exegol is not like an end game thing, right? Because it's so new still, it would be so weird to suddenly see it in like animated shows as well. So, especially with the Mandalorian, we've got the cloning stuff, but we've not. You just see around. I don't know.
I completely get it. It's just a kind of point that if we'd started kind of like, okay, Exegol's already here and in the background this far back, so it kind of almost builds into it going forward. So when it comes up in Rise, then you can go, oh, Exegol, and that's had clone things before. And I just think for the sake of me, and this is a total personal thing, but for me, I need something to help me get through the prequels more, the sequels more. Because that's the only kind of, especially that movie is the one that really grates when I've watched Force Awakens and I've watched Last Jedi quite a bit, and I quite like that journey through those first two, but Rise of Skywalker is still, I find, tough to get through now just because of that story. I need something to start building into that story so it plays better for me. So please make an Exegol next time.
I'm just not even going to rise to it.
With those kind of puns, get off.
Yeah.
I'm
what you guys said.
I'm down for
I kind of went
Exegol in
off
the
on a bit
future.
of a tangent. I forgot what the original point was. But
This is the
go
part
ahead.
where it's like we just bashed the Rise of Skywalker. We'll never forget the moment the credits came when I just had a shit next to me, and that was Dave's. I was like, it's not. I was so. And it's really off point, but after that first thing, I was so scared I was the only person that didn't like it, and I was just so relieved. And then turned to Marco, and he's like, I hate it too. I was like, I'm not alone in this.
And then I messaged you, and I was like, oh, that was lame. And you were like, okay, good, it wasn't just me.
I was honestly, yeah, that's an interesting discussion for one day. But Exegol, I know exactly what I mean. I've got no issue with it cropping up in the future of Star Wars. I love that's one of the few things I really liked in that film. The whole design of the planet, the lightning, the pyramid type thing. I loved all of that, the home of the Sith. And if this is a start point, having a facility elsewhere, I'm curious if we were to get a name drop one day down the line. I think that's a really good way of approaching it. But certainly, I don't hate 9 enough to be like, I never want to see a planet from it ever referenced. You know what people would have said about the prequels, right? And this is where, like, on a really side piece for Star Wars, I really don't. I mean, I know I dislike 9, but I will never ever get into a position where I'm slagging off people for enjoying it because I had to endure that with the prequels. And I think you're the same as us, to be fair, that, I can't, defend the prequels for X amount of years, then just start going for the one sequel film. So at the moment, I'd say no, but I'd be like that even if it was a Rogue One planet from a film I love, even I would feel that's quite new. I know we're getting Cassian, which defeats the purpose of it being new, but Exegol, I'm really intrigued for if they've got a long-term plan, which I think they might do with The Mandalorian, which potentially could lead to some very interesting side pieces. But aside from Exegol, let's speaking of the clones, again, it's what Kyle mentioned, it's a really good point that, I'm just going to bring it back up. He could see a battle between the TKs and clone troopers. We'll get to what we think could happen in season 2, because we've got that for the end piece, because there's no storyline for season 2, judging off the ending. But let's really quickly talk about the destruction of Kamino. That episode begins with the original John Williams theme, which was, to me, incredible. And I think we didn't know it was called Return to Kamino or anything, but we just assumed. And I think many months ago, I messaged you and Phil and said, one of my predictions is that Kamino could get destroyed at some point in the series. And what an incredible I don't know how long the scene was, but that whole episode to build up to the destruction of Kamino, I think is some of the best Star Wars I've seen in such a long time. And it feels so natural. Like, even like the cinematography, there were like shots of the empty tubes before they did the bombarded attack. It was this really nice, like, remember all this from Attack of the Clones and just watch us obliterate it to Kingdom Come. And I think the destruction of Kamino is one of the most powerful scenes in all of Star Wars. In truth, that hit. I mean, I didn't get upset, obviously, but that hit pretty hard. Like they've actually done this. They've actually done this, and this is incredible, and I'm here for it because it makes complete logical sense.
It's the absolute next phase. I think we mentioned earlier that this is them saying, look, the Clone Wars is over. You're moving into the Empire region. And I think the way they did it was perfect. Not just saying like a purge of the troopers, which they could have done, just like, yeah, we're getting rid of the clones. Look, we've now got the TK troopers. To actually physically go in and destroy Kamino is so telling of where they're going as an actual, the Empire as an organization. The destruction of Kamino was brutal. To just see them just bombard it and just over and over watching these bits fall in the sea. And you're right, I love that shot where just blank shots, blank cities, empty the mess hall and then the rooms, and it's just, and then they said the empty chambers without anybody in was almost eerie to see it empty. Like it was like, oh, okay, they've really just wiped everything clean, and now they're going to make sure there's nothing left apart from the scientists they want, and they're going to keep to do what they need. They don't want this clone facility anymore. And it was magnificent the way they did it. The way it was shot with the dark and the Star Destroyers outside, just blowing it up. It was just, I thought it was wonderfully executed, literally.
Yeah, no, I agree. And for me, it was a standout moment in the series, probably the standout moment. And you can just kind of imagine them sitting down for their first meeting of being like, right, what are we going to do with this series? And Filoni being like, this has to be in it. Without this, we've got nothing. So, it just paid off. It was just, it was so important that they got it in and they got it right, and it worked so well. And I have to agree with George, having John Williams score on that episode as well. It just, that kind of, like I said before about them having to fan feed, that is fan feeding, but done so well and so tastefully that people, I mean, I saw so many tweets about that music that day, and it really added to it for me. I think it was a great episode.
No, definitely. And sort of going in with that, well, the last bit about the Empress, we'll talk, I mean, we spoke briefly about the scientists, but Carl's put in the comment as well, the tying of the Mandalorian thing, having the one scientist left, absolutely Mando to episode 9. There's a long-term plan. I think there is something. I don't read the Darth Vader comics. I know there's a lot of hoorah over some silly things done that with the cloning type stuff. I've always been pretty sorry comic book fans, but to me it doesn't really count if it's a comic or book, because they can just change it and make it better, which is what they do in the new canon too. Best example was Mandalorian. They took the short story from Aftermath with Cobb Vanth and gave him an episode, and he was incredible.
Yes, it just said as well with the Kanan thing. They literally had a comic book Kanan and they just changed it for the Bad Batch, so that comic no longer is canon. So yeah, they do, when they do it well and think we've got a great idea, they are going to take these comics and books. So we're going to take a tiny bit of this. This is great. But the rest we're going to create our own thing around it. So, and I think it's the best way to do it for the live action stuff, to have maybe some basis that you say that's an excellent idea, but we don't like the rest of the execution. We'll make it better.
Yeah,
and that's what George Lucas always did.
Yeah.
And also, this comment here. Sorry, they took the lead cloner. It's all part of the Emperor's plan to live forever. All I can imagine now is the Sheev Palpatine version of him singing "Who Wants to Live Forever" by Queen. And it's just him with all the scientists. That's a Robot Chicken sketch waiting to happen, isn't it?
Just running around with a sword, slicing off other Emperor's heads. Oh, it'd be amazing.
Oh, right. I think, has anyone else got anything to add on the rise of the Empire? I know that's the big talking point, but have I missed anything, or are we all good to go?
No, I think we're good.
Perfect. Okay, let's bring up a couple of other things. So we've mentioned about Kanan, Hera, and Chopper. Obviously, a couple of Rebels alumni. I don't think we got much more than that. We kind of, in terms of Star Warsy cameos, I guess people would talk about Captain Rex coming back in, which was expected. Which, again, we use the word fan service quite a lot. I don't mind it in the animated shows. I know a lot of people have criticisms of it, that you keep bringing X, Y, and Z back into the fold. The bit that's thrown me was getting the Rancor still, because apparently it's not the Rancor from episode 6, and are you just saying that because you've made us like it, knowing that it's going to try and kill Luke in a few years? I don't know, but I remember you saying, Dave, that would have been a lot of money to animate Bib Fortuna and Gamma and Guards just to have a nothing scene, and essentially it was a nothing scene. So that's one of the more twisted Star Wars. I really wanted to mention that because that was like so random. I was like, oh, like what monsters are there? Could it be a Rancor? And then it was. I was like, wow, okay, they're really doing this.
Yeah. You're right. When they brought Bib Fortuna, there's no reason to bring Bib Fortuna in and a Gamma Guard if that is not the Rancor that we are going to know and love and watch get stabbed in the head with a spiky door. There's no reason for that. That could have been anybody, but don't do that if it's not who we all think it then is. It was crazy.
Yeah.
But you know what? I really love that. That for me was a real throwaway but fun episode. Whereas the stuff with Hera and Chopper, I got a bit bored of, and like it also then raised questions as to why they had the clone who didn't obviously turn to 60 or 66. They didn't follow up on that, and then also we got Gregor as well in the last sort of few episodes, and again didn't really follow why he hadn't gone below 66 either, and why he'd decided to, he got blown up earlier, didn't he? In the Clone Wars, I think he got blown up at some point, but maybe that made it defective. But yeah, so there was things, and Rex, I think was almost too big a cameo to then not follow up on. I expected Rex to come in the final episode for some as part of a rescue or something to show up, and just for him to come up and go, I need you to do one job off here, and then not come back. And especially when he's the hologram on the ship, a couple of episodes before the very end, where they're going to get Gregor, just then to not pay that off felt the whole ending just seemed like there was another episode coming, but they just stopped, and it was like, oh, right then.
Yeah, I think particularly with Hera, it was just a little bit like which characters can we bring in just to try and tie it in a little bit, and for people who maybe are losing interest a little bit, who can we bring in just to get them talking about it? And I mean, it worked. It didn't work with the story, but it worked. It got people chatting. It got people sharing pictures of it and stuff online. And the writers know what they're doing. They're just maybe using cheap shots a little bit, but they'll keep doing it.
Yeah, I think at that point that's when we lost too much Bad Batch.
Yeah,
and it went to a Rebels prequel for a few episodes that we didn't really need.
Yeah,
and the one I will say that was perfect who we did need was Cad Bane, because he is somebody they specifically never put in Rebels. They haven't put him in other things. They could have done him. There's always been rumors of him being in live action. Do you remember he was apparently going to be in Rogue One once? You always hear stories of Cad Bane and him coming back. It made sense. They put a bounty out, so the best bounty into who's still around at that point in time is going to go for it. So that's the kind of one that I think does make way more sense than some of them. But, whether Cad Bane comes back in season 2, which is what I would love to see. I love the fact that he did the standoff with Hunter and he won. Not being horrible, I did think Hunter was going to die at that point, and I'm still kind of good he didn't. It was just so weird to lose like a one-on-one standoff and him wake up like a minute later. It was so random. But again, he kind of went, and Ming-Na Wen was like, don't forget Book of Boba / Mandalorian on Disney Plus. And it was like okay, like there's like, oh, she's a really young and upcoming bounty, and just like, yeah, of course they're saying that now because in 20 years' time it's got to be Ming-Na Wen's age, hasn't it? So it's one of them where it's fan service. I think it always depends on the individual, doesn't it? Someone like Cad Bane, perfect, but half of the Rebels cast was too much. Kanan loved it because that looked a hell of a lot better, and that also was used to push the story of the Bad Batch when Crosshair was trying to snipe him out of a tree. That was quality TV. But any other cameos or anything like that before we talk about the actual animation?
No, I think that's kind of. I say Kanan was the big one. Say we got the Hera, and then a couple of troopers that we'd had before. I thought Bib Fortuna and seeing the Gamma Guard was a really nice cameo. Although be it's stupid if they're not going to say that's the Rancor. I'll get that to be that Rancor one day. I'll write Wikipedia if I have to. But it's so I don't think there's any really other big names dropped. And Tarkin really was kind of a cameo in the majority of it. He only kind of flashed up, and he got to say the line of "Fire when ready," which is also always awesome to hear.
Yeah. I think we pretty much got them all.
No, definitely. And really quickly, one thing. I mean, I'm not an animation expert. Like, animated films not normally my forte on the channel. Nothing against them. I don't see many. But what I need, the animation in this series is unbelievable scary. You look at some of these stills online, and it looks like this is the like PS5 graphics, or this looks like live action. And if you go back to season 1 of the Clone Wars, it looked good, and it's probably incredible for 2008 standards. But here we are in 2021. What they're able to now do, this animation, I think Rebels was the biggest jumping point. What they were able to do across that series, Clone Wars season 7 looked phenomenal. Now they've somehow took it to another level, and I just want to mention this animation that you can see the budget on screen, and they have the series to deliver it. Especially this era, planets like Kamino, when you get the whole water stuff as well, it looks superb. And I don't know if they can make it any better, because it is just on that level.
It's getting to a point now where you could have probably put some of those backgrounds into Attack of the Clones and improved the look of the movie. Like, it's
So
getting to that level where the CGI, like, we could replace that with what we're doing, and you would not really tell the difference because the way the CGI was rendered back then. The way they've come so far from the first episode of Clone Wars, where they did that 3-episode movie, which is pretty awful, to where they are now, it doesn't look like the same. It is the same show, but in no way, shape, or form does it look like the same show. They have come so far. Some of the stills, if you freeze frame, sometimes that when the Star Destroyers are firing down on Kamino, it is absolutely it's stunning what they're doing with the artwork, and I just think they're coming so far, and I can only imagine where they're going to go with it. And we're going to see so many more worlds. We're going to go through season 2, and probably more places that we've been before, but are going to look as close as we were to seeing them in live action, and they're getting to that level with the animation on here. I think it's absolutely stunning what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I love particularly about it is that they've kept the same style, but they've just tidied it up so much. Like, I mean, we all keep saying it, but it is visually breathtaking to look at. They've really nailed it, and but you can see it is still related to Clone Wars and Rebels, but it's just in another realm. I loved it so much. It was one of the things why I wanted to keep going with it, was because I just enjoyed looking at it. Like, it was just so good. Like, the animation is just so good.
And as well as animation, let's look soundtrack really quickly. Kevin Conlon returning. He's obviously done all of Clone Wars. Kind of a staple of Star Wars at the moment. That he is like the sound of the animated films. And it sounds horrible. I'd like him to stick to animated, because he feels like he's the John Williams for their animated stuff. It'd be so weird if he did live action. I don't know if that sounds horrible or not. It's not intended to. I don't really. This sounds really horrible. The soundtrack's not had its moments like Clone Wars, where you get this incredible stuff that comes out. Sometimes silence has been the best weapon, and obviously, we got the rendition of the John Williams stuff from Attack of the Clones, which credit needs to go to John Williams still, and for them to picking it. But the soundtrack, I don't think, did a massive amount for me. However, it wasn't done badly. Like, there was no songs that stuck out and was like, why is this being played? Nothing like that. But I think when you compare it to End of Clone Wars and how incredible the Siege of Mandalore score was, it's a massive jump apart. But it was nice to get him back. And again, it feels like an encore for Clone Wars, but we know it's going to go on for more years. But you kind of need to have him back at this point in time.
I like how he has come in and he's got his own thoughts on Star Wars music. A lot like they have with Mandalorian. They're taking, like, this is your thing, now go off and do what your score you think it should be. And they very rarely rely on, maybe more in Clone Wars and maybe not as much, don't rely so much on John Williams themes as much as they could. In Clone Wars, they did a lot, and certainly in the they relied on it quite heavily and use it sort of then less, but only for like powerful moments where you knew it was going to play. Like they did in Mandalorian when Yoda was mentioned and his theme played, and so little things like we got the Force theme at the end with when Mark Hamill turned up, with Luke Skywalker turned up. It was just Mark Hamill turned up. Weird. Just Mark Hamill, why are you here? Blue milk, not the green one. So I think it's been really nice in the way that he doesn't just go out there and just play John Williams music, which I'm guessing they have as much right to that music to just play whenever they want to and throw it in. They know they own it, so they could, but they stay away from it as much as they can. So I do think you're right. The Bad Batch music hasn't stood out a lot, but it's underplayed the entire series really well, where it hasn't take me out of it because I'm thinking about what the music is playing, but it's played really well throughout it.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not like a score I would go and listen to in like when I'm not watching it, but it gave the show its own identity in the same way that they did for Rebels and Clone Wars. It's helping differentiate the three series from each other whilst keeping them the same, if that makes sense. In the same way as the animation, I suppose. Like you can tell they're linked, but they are different, and I think the music does the same thing. It just complements the series really well.
No, definitely. And I want to kind of ask that before we wrap up, so we're pretty much the end now. Before we give our final thoughts on season 1, I want to ask each of you, season 2, does anybody have any form of prediction? Because I guess kind of going off the ending was quite flat, and I think that's something we haven't really actually spoke about. The way season 1 ends, you know, you look at Rebels, right? That ended here's a series 1 arc done. But this person was Ahsoka the entire time. And that's like, okay, Ahsoka, isn't it? What's the arc? What's the situation? What's happening? And I don't know this is a criticism because this ties up Series 1 nicely. But at the same time, we're back to square one. Where it's like the episode has ended, the Bad Batch are flying away from Kamino with Crosshair left at the platform alone. Because we had the incredible destruction of Kamino, something feels missing from the ending personally. I don't feel like there's a story that's been set up for them to follow off. And not that I'm saying that's a bad thing. They might have some incredible things planned for the following season, but it's really hard to make predictions for what is going to happen next. Because ultimately we still know that the Empire is replacing clones with stormtroopers, and that's all we really have to go off. So kind of not ending on like a damp squib with how the show did, but what do you guys want to see in the second season might be a better question.
You're right. I think it completely left us with a kind of... the Bad Batch certainly had no further story arc. Like, that's why I maybe think it would have been nice for Rex to have come to the rescue at the end, just that they kind of go, well, now I'm with these rebels and this is what we're doing, and maybe you could then start laying off missions from that. But we didn't get that. Again, they just flew off. So we don't know where they're going, where they're headed, what they're thinking of doing next. Do they even know where... didn't know where Rex was. He was on a mission somewhere. So they haven't even got that information or intel. So they're just getting off planet at that point. I liked that they went and we saw that Nala Se went to get taken by the Empire. And I like that we did see the clone doctor come out with the same badge that the guy in The Mandalorian had. So very similar uniform. Should have been on Exegol. But other than that, you can at least think, all right, we're going somewhere with the cloning side of it. We're probably going to hear a lot more about that in season 2, because I can't see them just leaving that story there and just leaving us to kind of build the piece in our head to go, oh, well, they've got a cloner now, so that's why the Emperor's alive, because that doesn't work still, okay? But yeah, so you're right. It built up and built up and built up and had these amazing 2 episodes finale of all this threat and what could happen, and then nothing kind of did.
Yeah.
So I don't know where we're going in season 2. I'm sure it'll be great. Now, I'm certainly going to tune in to watch it, which before Bad Batch season 1 started is not something I would have found myself saying, but I'm invested now and I want to see how the story continues.
Yeah, if they'd said at first that Bad Batch was going to have season 1 and 2, I probably would have gone, I might not bother. That's a bit too much of an investment. Yeah. But like you say, now we've finished season 1 and they've left it so open. I'm almost intrigued by it now because we have no idea where it's going. I don't even really know what I want to see from it. As long as we get more Omega, I'll be happy. I hope she gets to do a bit more. I hope she's not bogged down with looking after the Bad Batch like she has been in this series, but maybe gets to do a bit more individual sort of like storylines or something. I really don't know, but I'm excited for it. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm going to miss watching it this week. I think that's another thing is that it's done now, so now we're just gonna have to wait. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Who knows what's gonna happen, and who knows if it's gonna be any good, but I'm sure I'll watch it anyway.
Yeah, and not even jumping in like the fan fiction thing, but even don't take my word for it, because I know people always moan about what you didn't want didn't happen. I'm telling it's one of them. But if you'd have had a scene of like Crosshair boarding the ship, but he had like a tracker on, and it like clicked that he's still evil. He's telling them that. It just felt like there wasn't any thread for them to go off, and I think that's where I've struggled. But I've got faith in Filoni. I know he's exec producing now, but he's still involved in the writing. He's still very much involved, and obviously these are characters that the animated era just feels like it's his child, and I still think they treat. Like, I know he's moving to live action, which I'm incredibly buzzing for. As an understatement, but I'm excited to see what he does. They've got my faith just off the fact that he's involved, and I think they always will. What I want to kind of end on, though, is sort of final thoughts on season 1. As we've all said, me personally, this is a show I went in with no expectation for, not hyped at all, and I've come out of it, love one of the members of the team, enjoy the new character, have some really good episodes, but the main thing this show's done for me, which is something I wanted, that it's expanded, it's carried on the world building, it's building up that Star Wars lore, and that's something I feel like we've not had for a while. I know The Mandalorian is doing an incredible job of being itself. The Mandalorian is focused on the smaller picture, and it doesn't need to be telling us what happened before 7, 8, and 9. And I like the fact that we're able to delve into different stories and different eras. But I've come out of this a fan of the Bad Batch, which is something I didn't think I'd be saying sort of 3 months ago. I'd be completely shocked if that was the case. So that's the best sort of final thoughts I can give it. That it's one of those that blow me away, and sometimes the best thing is to go in with no expectation and come out entertained.
I think I'm exactly the same place. That the series has gone through really, really high highs, but has had troughs of lows. It's been a very up and down season for me, and I did lose a little bit of interest in the middle of it. But there's been some standard episodes that kind of really held me. It's like when I got out of Star Wars for a long time after like the prequels, and then the Clone Wars, like season 2 onwards, kind of really pulled me back in. And then you kind of think, oh, I'm not really into this new high era stuff that's coming out. I've got no real interest in following it at all. So I wasn't fussed about the Bad Batch. But yeah, I'm now a fan, and I am very, very excited to see what happens in the future of it.
Yeah, me too. And actually, as the season was going on, I was like, I think I'm getting bored of this. Like, I'm not sure it's grasping me enough. But after this discussion, actually, I have actually really enjoyed it. It just takes a bit of like chatting about what happened and the whole thing as a whole to make you realize actually how enjoyable it has been as a season. Yes, it's had some episodes where I'd probably lost concentration halfway through, and it got to the credits and I was like, oh, it's finished. I didn't even realize. But that's gonna happen. It's a long season, so and for something that I didn't think I was gonna have any interest in, I'm so happy that I managed to get all the way through it and come at the end and be like, actually, I'm a Bad Batch fan. Like, what has happened? Who knew that was actually going to happen? When they announced it, I was like, this is not going to be for me at all. But there you go. It just shows perseverance pays off. But yeah, I can't wait for season 2. And
Carla's on the comments, never thought I'd be a mega fan, but they handled it perfectly. There we go. I think they've done a lot of good work, and it's what they're good at. They the fact that, again, going back to Clone Wars, they made clones characters, not a faceless CGI army. It is something that I think very few writers could probably do it in absolute fact. So that's going to wrap it up for our season 1 discussion. Again, I thought this would be a Bad Batch discussion. We didn't know there was a season 2 until 2 weeks ago. Yeah. So maybe we'll come back this time. I don't even know when it's going to air. Some point next year. If they do it May the 4th again, we'll know it's rigged at that point in time. But it will be back in 2022. And I'd imagine it won't be weekly reviews. Obviously, we never know what we're going to do for some of these shows. So I want to hear from you guys at home. Comment your thoughts on the Bad Batch, your thoughts going into it, how they were, plot threads you've got, things you think they could do in season 2, predictions, theories, all that. Comment below. We'll reply to the comments, and make sure to hit that like and subscribe. And we may not have Star Wars things at the moment, but we assure you, come December, there's going to be weekly videos. And next year, we've got Cassian, we've got Kenobi, we've got Mandalorian. It's not going away anytime soon, even if the films are. Disney is dominating. And as we kept saying in lockdown, they were the ones giving us new films, new shows weekly to latch onto. And as far as streaming services go, they're the best.
There's rumors of a Kenobi trailer coming on that Disney Plus day that's coming up. I don't know what to expect.
November 12th.
Yeah.
I'm gonna. Last year I was. I'll save that discussion for where I was last year, but I missed all the announcements and I was drunk, so that's one. That was a fun night. But that being said, I really want to quickly. If none of the people follow you both, which they should do. Dave, where can we find you, and what do we do on your channel?
If you want to come over to my YouTube channel, is The Life of Brian. I'm a part work model builder, sometime reviewer of toys and things. I'm currently building a T800 and a Ghostbusters Ecto 1. If you want to find me on Twitter, I am the Dave Bryan for excellent tweets now and again that I just mention other people in a lot, and bad movie reviews.
Basically,
And
just
Sean?
me and you talking about Bad Batch.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
You can find me at Funny Old World X on Twitter. I'm writing for the Film Magazine, and I'm also writing for Film Hounds now as well. So check them out. I'm on Twitter basically 90% of my life, so you can find me on there.
Definitely. So everybody follow them. There's links in the description as well. I want to thank you both for coming on. It's been a really fun chat tonight talking Star Wars, and it's nice to talk about Star Wars. It's been a while, but I've got to plug this for all you James Bond fans. This Tuesday, the 17th, I've deleted the tag by mistake. So no, I haven't. Tomorrow Never Dies. The Brosnan reigns supreme. We're at the second Brosnan film. That's going to be live this Tuesday. That's going to be myself, Chris. We're joined by Tate for this one. So it's just going to be the three of us for Pierce Brosnan's second outing as 007, 1997. What a throwback. I was actually the first Bond film I was born for. So that being said, if you're into Bond, do check us out. We've got a lot of other reviews on the channel. We did a Jungle Cruise review. We've done Ted Lasso, done a couple of other things, and maybe there'll be a free guy review at some point this week. People that just do nothing's coming out. We're getting new releases. That's the main thing. So stick around with us, hit that subscribe button. A lot of new reviews on the way, discussions for the bigger films as well to go through. And again, thank you all for watching, and be sure to join us on the next one. See you later.